2019. Call to order. Flag salute, Mr. Kraus.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Amendola.
Here.
Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Ms. Perry.
Here.
Ms. Glasser.
Here.
Ms. Stamets. Mr. Rosario. Mr. Levasseur.
Here.
Mayor Bloom. Here. Solicitor Corbel. Here. Engineer's not here. Broadcaster Rusky. Here.
At this time, I'd like to motion to move to reorganize council.
Pardon me, Mr. President, don't we have to accept the resignation of a departing member before we do that?
I don't believe so.
Do you want me to opine?
Yes.
The officers of council serve at the pleasure of the remainder of council. So council can vote to change officers at any time.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right.
I wonder, shouldn't we wait until,
No.
why not?
Yes.
We're gonna reorganize.
So the implications as far, can I ask a question? So the implications at this point, since we have not accepted Mr. Rosario's resignation, is that he is still on council, is that not correct?
He is currently a member of council, but
Yes.
he's not present.
And even though he was not here for roll call, can he be called for this vote?
Yes, he could be called.
Thank you.
Well, I withdraw my second. I'll make that motion further on down the line after.
Phil made this.
You made the motion, someone else needs to
So
second.
there was a second, you're withdrawing your second.
I'm gonna withdraw my second because this reorganization should be made after his resignation is accepted.
There's no definitive order. I would prefer that we move forward with a reorg.
And I will introduce it after
So-
Mr.
We have a
Rosario's
motion,
letter
somebody else
of
gets
resignation is accepted.
But there's a motion, so if somebody else on council would like to second it, we can go forward. Otherwise, it will fail for lack of a second, and then we will continue on the remainder of the agenda.
And I promise I'll bring it up later.
I'll second the motion to finish the discussion. So what is it we're actually discussing?
Reorganization of council with regards to president, vice president, and president pro tem.
So at this point, Mr. Corbel, Mr. President, is the floor open for nominations for president, vice
No.
president?
So we have to vote on the motion to reorganize.
Oh, I see. I did.
I have a question. I mean, why are we doing this now instead of after we accept Mr.
Well,
Rosario's resignation letter?
Because I prefer
I mean, if you
that we
say
go
we
through
reorganize
there
now-
is word that there is.
I call the vote.
Roll call.
Roll call vote. Motion to reorganize. Mr. Amendola.
No?
Mr. Kraus.
Yes.
Ms. Perry.
No.
Ms. Glasser.
No.
Ms. Stamets.
Yes.
Mr. Rosario absent. Mr. Levasseur.
Yes.
The motion is a tie. When there is a tie vote, the mayor has the option of breaking the tie or tabling the matter to a special meeting that must be held within 5 to 10 days of this meeting. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Am I allowed to make a comment prior to my vote?
Sure.
Okay. I feel that Mr. Rosario's resignation motion should have been placed first. In other words, when you decided you wanted to reorganize, you should have changed the agenda and accepted the motion to accept Mr. Rosario's. Once council voted on that,
There's no, I appreciate that.
Okay.
There's no set order. I'm just saying,
I know,
knowing
that's
the
what I'm saying.
climate, I prefer that we reorg, so,
then I vote yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Now, the floor is open for nominations for the office of President of Council.
I nominate Coletta Perry.
I
for president.
I second that motion.
No seconds necessary, just nominate, and then a motion to close nominations, and then a vote.
I nominate Freddie Mandola.
Doesn't the mayor run the meeting at this point? If we're reorganizing, doesn't the mayor run the meeting at this
The
point?
mayor runs the reorganization meeting at the beginning of the year, but not in the situation where
Oh.
council was
All right.
attempting to reorganize mid-year.
Okay, so
Good
basically
question.
we have a motion on the table,
There's 2 nominations.
Can
Are
we-
there any further nominations?
so you can take multiple nominations.
Sure.
Okay.
So there've been 2 nominations. Any further? So, yes, if there are none, I'm sorry, Mr. Neiman, but this is a council matter. We'll allow comments later. So if there are no further nominations, we need a motion to close nominations.
I make a motion to close the nominations for reorganization.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry, I feel like I've taken your
That's
time here. Okay, so now there are 2 nominations, so we'll do a roll call vote. Members of council should state the name of the individual they would like to serve in the role of president. So you can either vote Perry or Amendola. Mr. Gazarovski.
Mr. Amendola.
Miss Perry.
Mr. Kraus.
Mr. Amendola.
Ms. Perry.
Ms. Perry.
Ms. Glasser.
Ms. Perry.
Ms. Stamets.
Ms. Perry.
Mr. Lavasser.
Ms. Perry.
Ms. Perry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mr. Amendola, 1.
All right.
Ms. Perry is now the president of council.
There you go. Good clap.
Thanks for the vote.
No, I think it was probably about that. I mean that.
Yeah, we might want to switch name tags.
Why don't you continue through this and let me catch my breath?
All right, now, if we can open the floor for nominations for the office of Vice President of Council.
I make a motion to nominate Freddie Amendola
I second that
as vice
motion.
president.
I don't-
No seconds are necessary, just a nomination. So we have Mr. Amendola is nominated. Any other nomination? Hearing none, can I have a motion to close nomination?
Motion to close the nominations.
Is there a second?
I
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll do I think we could just do a voice vote since there's only one nominee. All in favor of Freddie Amendola as Vice President of Crafton Borough Council, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Amendola, you are now the Vice President of Borough Council. Is this the Vice Presidency?
I'm going to keep my seat. Thank you.
Fair enough. And then there is another office of President Pro Tem. So that we'll open the floor for nominations for President Pro Tem.
I nominate Alice Glasser. I nominate Alice Glasser.
I decline.
Any other nominations for President Pro Tem?
Well,
You can-
Marcia was the pro tem before. You want to be the pro tem again? You want me to
I would like
nominate you?
nominate Philip.
All right, I nominate Marcia.
Okay,
Any other nominations?
Philip. I'd like to nominate Philip.
Okay. Philip Lavasser is nominated. Any other nominations? Okay, can I have a motion to close nominations?
I motion to close the nominations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Gazarovski, can you do a roll call? Council will vote either Damitz or Lavasser.
Mr. Amendola.
Damn it.
Mr. Kraus.
Damn it.
Ms. Perry.
Philip.
Ms. Glasser.
Philip.
Ms. Stamets.
Philip.
Ms. Lavasier.
Philip Lavasser.
4 for Mr. Lavasier, 2 for Ms. Taylor.
Philip Lavasser is the president pro tem of council. That concludes the reorganization. I think we're on number 4.
Thank you. I'll accept the nomination for approval of the bill list. So dated June 10th.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Approval of the minutes dated May 29, 2019. Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes for approval of the minutes. So we'll move to citizens' comments regarding agenda items only. Do we have that up here, Mr. Gazarovski? So at this time, citizens may address the borough on issues appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the borough will be permitted to speak, and comments on non-agenda items will be held till the end. Parking on Cromwell, do we have any parking issues? Yes, we do, on the solicitor's report. So Anthony,
I'll
could
say
you
that
step
for,
up?
I'll say that for the end. There was another comment on there prior.
Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. It says parking on Cromwell in Craft.
Before that, it's about one of the resignations.
Oh, okay. Since that is on the agenda, would you like to?
Anthony Sawa, 568 Broadhead. So this is in regards to the resignation of Councilman Rosario. So as council prepares to accept the resignation, I just ask that during the debate portion that either council or the solicitor explain how the vacancy will be filled, with an emphasis on the opportunity for public participation and comments in how the selection procedure for the public record, how the whole process is going to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Roy Neiman, 102 Haldane. I too want to know the process, how we replace Abby. And I've been down to the Allegheny County,
Board of Elections?
yes, thank you. See, you're doing your job already. And they kind of threw it back at you folks. So what I would like to know, and you're saying the same thing.
We will
What do
make,
we do?
we will make sure that it's clear, and I want to make, I appreciate the requests. What we want to make clear of, there's two pieces here. There is how will we replace Abby between now and the end of the term, or at the end of the year, plus what will happen and how that position will go on the ballot at the general election. So there's two separate issues. And at that point, it will be an unfilled 2-year term, and the solicitor mayor may have information for us a little bit later in this discussion. And if we don't have answers today, we will make sure that we discuss it in public.
Thank you.
That's the big thing. I want transparency, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, we have a presentation by Fair Districts of PA tonight. And would the presenter like to come up and introduce himself?
Thank you very much for hearing me speak tonight. My name is Rob Herring. For those of you who don't know me, I live at 61 Bradford Avenue. I've been a resident of Crafton Borough since 2014. It's been a very quick 5 years. I can't believe it's been 5 years already. It'll be 5 years in July. I guess I'm here in front of you to complain about nothing in terms of Crafton Borough. I do love living here. My wife and I consider ourselves very fortunate to have discovered Crafton Borough when we were looking for houses back in 2014. So what I am here to talk about is a little more abstract. I think it does apply to Crafton Borough, but it's an issue that kind of expands to our state government and also our federal government, and that's the idea of gerrymandering. I'm sure everyone's heard the term, it's been on the news a lot. Gerrymandering is when one political party draws district lines that benefit themselves over the other. Okay? It's kind of a general definition because obviously it can go both ways, and it has gone both ways. Democrats have redistricted to benefit themselves over Republicans, and vice versa. The term gerrymander comes from Elbridge Gerry. He was the governor of Massachusetts in 1812. He drew a district that was shaped like a salamander. Elbridge Gerry, salamander, gerrymander. I tell this quick story just to illustrate that this is not a new issue. This was from back in 1812. What is new is how redistricting has been weaponized by our political parties. It's extremely easy for politicians to forecast how many voters are going to turn out and who they're going to vote for. And with that information, it's very easy to draw maps to benefit one political party over another. So the basis of democracy is that the voters choose the politicians, okay? Much in the way that all of you were elected as representatives of Crafton Borough. Your district is Crafton Borough. With the current system and the gerrymandering that's taking place, what we're having happen is that politicians are choosing their voters. So it's switched. And when you switch the process around, there's some negative side effects. Some of those side effects include ignoring their constituency, politicians who don't have to answer to the voters. You see an increase in outside influence when politicians don't have to answer to their voters. They can list all sorts of other people that have money. There's increased gridlock. You see that in the news. And also there's a competitive imbalance in terms of people running unopposed. People are choosing not to run because they think it's impossible to win based on how the district lines are drawn. We are the only major democracy in the world to allow politicians to draw their own districts. And Pennsylvania was the third most gerrymandered state in our country before a Supreme Court overruled the map. So, I'm here before you because this is an issue that kind of makes me angry, it makes me frustrated. It kind of led me to read more about it and educate myself. I'm a civil engineer by profession. Anytime I hear about problems, I always try and think, well, what is the solution to that problem? And there's a lot of smart people proposing a lot of smart solutions to this problem. That led me to Fair Districts PA. Okay, I'm not a member of Fair Districts PA. I kind of sought them out, and they're helping me guide me through this request I'm making here tonight. And Fair Districts PA is exactly what the name sounds, Fair Districts PA. They don't want gerrymandered districts, they want fair ones. A fair district is one that's transparent in terms of how it's created and proposed, that's impartial, and that's fair. And this isn't just an issue that Fair Districts PA is working on, there's also politicians that are working on this. Right now, we have bills in both our House and Senate and Pennsylvania government to propose what's called an independent citizens commission. And that too is exactly what it sounds like. So we're taking the power from the politicians to draw the district boundaries, and we're giving it to citizens. Those commissions typically are made up of equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans, and they also sprinkle in a few independents. Both of these bills propose a process in which the maps would require public input. The current process is all the politicians hide in a dark room and they unveil at the last minute and push it through. These proposed bills would allow at least transparency, just like we were talking about earlier. And they would also require that the communities not be subdivided apart. That's something we see in gerrymandered districts. In terms of the salamander from 1812, because there's all sorts of wacky names with different shaped districts as they're trying to catch certain voters to get a certain outcome. An independent citizens commission is a new idea, but it's not unique. This has already been adopted by 6 states in our country. Okay? And those 6 states include Alaska, Arizona, California, Idaho, Montana, and Washington. So when I say this is a nonpartisan issue, there's an equal dispersal there of red and blue states. Depending on where you live in the country, they give a different opinion on what political parties are voting for gerrymandering. But the truth is that both parties are doing it. It's a problem across our country, and it's one that I'd like to see Pennsylvania resolve. So with that kind of summary, it kind of leads me to what I'm even doing here, standing up talking to Crafton Borough. I think everyone here is used to discussing issues physically located within our borough limits. What I'm asking is that council consider passage of the resolution. I'm not sure if everyone received a copy of that yet. I did send it to the manager. The resolution is pretty benign. It's a non-binding resolution. Basically, if I may summarize, I would encourage everyone to read it, but it says that gerrymandering is bad, we want a solution, and we want our politicians to be held accountable to finding that solution. So the idea is you pass the resolution, and then a copy of that resolution gets mailed to every one of our representatives that represent citizens of Crafton. So that would include all of our state representation, our federal government representation, and then I think some county representation as well. There's already been 313 other municipalities in our state that have passed this exact same resolution. There's been 20 counties who have passed the same resolution. That accounts for 70% of our state's population. So I'm asking Crafton Borough Council to consider adding our voices to that growing groundswell of support. So that basically concludes my introduction on the topic. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Philip.
So would we need to sign that resolution as a council or make a resolution, or is anything?
The resolution is made.
We have a sample resolution in our packets that we can make available. I believe it's what you sent to us.
Yes.
And actually, do you have a copy with you?
I do not, but I'd be happy to provide one.
Oh, no, that's all right. I was wondering whether we should read it for those in attendance here.
It's pretty long, I could read it if you like, I have it here.
But, yeah, I have it up as well, but I'd greatly appreciate it if you would go ahead and read it.
Thank you, Ray.
So I'm going to read this resolution then. A resolution in support of a Citizens Commission for Legislative and Congressional Redistricting. Whereas the citizens of the Borough of Crafton in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania deserve a fair, fully transparent, impartial, and depoliticized process of the decennial drawing of the state legislature and congressional districts of near equal population. And whereas legislative congressional redistricting has at times resulted in gerrymandered districts that favor one political party over others. And whereas the creation of a truly independent...
I think we missed a...
Oh, my apologies.
It's all right.
And whereas such gerrymandering of legislative and congressional districts has worked at times to the detriment of our representative democracy. And whereas the creation of a truly independent Citizens Redistricting Commission devoid of political motivation or partisanship will ensure a fair, transparent, and accurate legislative and congressional redistricting process that respects political subdivisions, prohibits districts from being redrawn to favor or discriminate against a political party or candidate, require public input, and...
Require the use of impartial and sound methodology.
Oh, my apologies. My site is...
Okay, so require the use of impartial and sound methodology when setting district boundaries, require public input, and fully comply with the constitutional requirements that no county, city, incorporated town, borough, township, or ward be divided unless absolutely necessary. And, do you want to pick it up again?
Sure. Whereas legislation to amend the Pennsylvania Constitution to reform the decennial legislative and congressional redistricting process with the intent of using fairness and sound methodology in a nonpartisan fashion is required to ensure these reforms. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Borough of Crafton does hereby support legislative efforts to amend the Pennsylvania Constitution to assign the decennial task of both legislative and congressional redistricting to an independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, and be it further resolved that we call upon these elected officials and party leaders in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who represent the citizens of the Borough of Crafton to publicly announce their support of and commitment to work towards passage of such legislative efforts, and that a copy of this resolution be delivered to each of them. and I'll spare you, it's signed by the governor, the lieutenant governor.
Oh,
and the
no,
attorney
it's
general.
directed to all of these people.
Oh, directed to, yes, and it's Governor Tom Wolf, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, Attorney General Josh Shapiro, United States Senators Bob Casey and Pat Toomey, Representative Connor Lamb, Pennsylvania Senator Wayne Fontana, Pennsylvania Representative Daniel Deasy, John DeFazio, President of Allegheny Council, Council at Large, Samuel DeMarco III, which is my cousin, Allegheny County Council at Large, Patrick Catena, Allegheny Council District 4, and Acting Secretary of the Commonwealth, Kathy Bookvar. So I hope I read that good enough for you guys. Sorry about that.
I appreciate it.
Okay, so is there a motion in council to accept or reject this petition?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Is there citizen comment on this?
There will be as soon as we have the motion.
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion on council?
Yeah, I'd like to get some input from the solicitor.
Sure.
What do you think?
I don't have a vote, Mr. Chairman.
I know, I don't know
This
what this is, I don't know what this is.
It's a legally non-binding statement of council that this body supports what was read. That is an independent citizens review commission. On a personal note, I voted to pass this resolution in my role as a commissioner in Ross Township.
That's the answer I'm looking for.
And so I have voted for this where I can, but I can't vote here.
Okay.
Okay, and then at this point, do we have any citizens' comments or questions? Roy first, and then Anthony. You guys have it first.
Sorry, let me do it better stated this
Roy Neiman, 102 Haldane. If you folks had looked at the district I came from 4 years ago, Montgomery County, it was classic gerrymandering. We gotta stop this. And I hope you folks, excuse me, it's allergies. I hope you folks will pass this resolution.
Anthony?
Anthony Solid, 568 Broadhead. I am in full support of this. I was actually shocked. There was a previous election of Representative Connor Lamb. I was actually very shocked that one side of Broadhead is one district, the other side of Broadhead is a whole different district. So to me, Crafton, we're all one community. The fact that one street in the neighborhood is cut in half, to me, it's something that needs to be taken care of. And having citizen input is going to be beneficial in the long run, not only for the state in general, but also for Crafton, because Crafton's voice right now is divided in half in the U.S. Congress.
Any other comments, questions?
Matt Legacy, 617 Broadhead. I don't have a long statement, but I support this as well.
Okay, thank you. All right. After hearing citizens' comments, we need to call for a vote. All in favor of supporting this statement?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, are you taking a,
We're doing a roll call.
what are you doing, roll call vote?
Well, I was going to take a voice vote, but we can take a roll call. Go right ahead.
Mr. Amendola,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Glosser,
Yes.
Ms. Stamets,
Yes.
Mr. Lavasier.
Yes.
My motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get back to my agenda. So next on our agenda this evening is a presentation from Crafton Celebrates to discuss the beer garden.
I'm Angela Palchowski from Crafton Celebrates. This isn't a presentation like his, this is just a little shorter, just about the beer garden for Crafton Celebrates. So like last year, we need to get council vote approval to have beer at Crafton Celebrates. That's what I'm here for again this year, to have beer again through a nonprofit at Crafton Celebrates. All the same rules as last year in the beer garden, with the insurance and everything that we voted for before. Is there any questions about Crafton Celebrates?
So will it be the same organization or?
No, he chose not to do it, the Carlton football boosters. And we also reached out to the fire department, who declined as well. But we have a few organizations who have had the liquor license before who are interested, so we just need to hammer out the details. And I already have a business
Okay,
donating
so-
$1,000 to it.
Okay, so basically, under the same rules that we did last year,
Right.
like you haven't finalized on the organization yet, but it will be a not-for-profit
Correct.
organization.
Yes.
Any questions on council about this?
Seemed to run well last year.
Yeah, actually, the only complaint we got that it was in a garden
Right.
and they couldn't take their beer around the park, but it went, everybody liked it. It was really well. The only thing is if you have a little kid with you and you want to have a drink, you can't go into the beer garden because the child's not allowed in, so they're not.
So are you gonna provide leashes so the kids can be?
That would be one better juice garden. Juice garden or slushy garden.
Yeah, juice garden with the babysitter, maybe for next year.
What's your qualifications? Excuse me, what's your qualifications? You know, I own a liquor license in Crafton.
Yeah.
What qualifications?
Okay, so, it just.
I'm sorry, I was just.
Okay, that's all right, we'll call for community comments in a moment. So, Angela, did you have anything else to say?
No, that was it about the beer garden. We
Okay.
just want to vote so we can move forward with it if it's possible, or,
Okay, and I'll address your question. Basically, the Crafton Celebrates is an organization under the Crafton Borough, so it's part of Crafton Borough.
Right.
The purpose of Crafton Celebrates, besides being a great community event to support Crafton and provide entertainment for Crafton residents, is to give not-for-profit organizations an opportunity to do fundraising. And so last year, the
Carlton football boosters.
boosters had that, what do we call it, the venue to do that. We checked all of the, with our solicitor, with our insurance company, and we did all of that. And last year it was Matt Greiner
Correct,
who handled that.
I'm fully aware of that.
Right, okay, so
My question is, what are your qualifications if you're gonna run it?
she's not
I'm not
suggesting
going
that
to.
she's gonna run it.
Oh, okay, I'm
No,
sorry, I'm
No,
sorry.
Angela
She's in charge
is
of it.
head of the Crafton Celebrates Committee, and she's coming to council to make sure that we will approve as we did last year, because we have to approve this exception to
I
having.
apologize, I
That's all right,
misunderstood.
that's okay. So we're all good. So what she's saying is that there are some not-for-profits that she's reaching out to.
Good.
Okay?
Angela, there isn't any decision made yet, you don't know who's gonna do it, you're just still looking?
No, because so far, everybody in mind has declined. We have a few people interested right now, not-for-profit, so I think what we're gonna try to do is have them pair together and work together, because getting volunteers is really, really difficult, and that's why people are backing away, because they don't have the
It's
manpower.
just a few weeks away, I mean, do you think it can be
Right,
pulled
so-
together?
Yes. Yeah, because it doesn't take as much manpower as like a game booth, where you have to count prizes every night, you have to do like wristbands or tickets or whatever they're doing. It's just getting people to show up and get the product there, which I think is very possible.
Because I think he's gonna need to see insurance certificates and all that
Just like
stuff.
last
Just
Yes.
like last year.
Yeah.
So I
In
think,
the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
so I think what we're looking to do, correct me if I'm wrong, to give Crafton Celebrates provisional approval to do it the same way, under the same conditions, if they're able to find someone to do it. Is that everybody's reading on that?
Okay.
Okay. So, can we call for a motion to allow Crafton Celebrates to have a beer garden under the same provisions as last year?
She's asking.
I'm asking for a motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we are able to have the beer garden down at the park for the Crafton Celebrates for this summer event.
Under the same conditions as last year,
Yes.
if I can amend that.
Yes. Do I have a second? Okay. Any discussions?
No, it was really great last year,
Okay.
so.
And then at this point, since this is not on the agenda, any public questions or comments about this?
So I think this is a great event, but I do know one of the complaints that was brought up was family, adults with a child, not being able to leave the child alone to grab a beer in the beer garden. So I don't know if there's a way to come to a solution, because you don't want to hinder, because I mean, the point of having a beer garden is to raise money for good causes. So we want to make sure that they're very profitable, and that, continuously we have folks come back every year that want to participate to raise money. Maybe next year's the boosters, the year after maybe the pool, who knows? So maybe come to some kind of middle ground that would include some provisions to make it a little bit easier, but also within the guidance of the insurance and legal ramifications as well.
So, Solicitor, do you have any comments about whether there are certain limitations on that?
Well, that would be an issue for Crafton Celebrates to address, and I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you said maybe next year.
Well, so originally, last year, we didn't want to have the garden, we just wanted to sell beer. But when we came to council, it was approved only because we could have it in a garden.
Fenced in.
Right, yeah, in a fenced-in area where you get cards on your way and you have to keep the beer inside the fenced-in area and you can't leave with the beer. And I think what he was saying is people would appreciate it if they could not have a fenced-in area and just use the Crafton Park guardrails as a fenced-in area.
So you're
So
basically.
what you're saying, right?
Okay, so basically the motion we have is on the table to vote on at this moment in time is under last year's provisions. Brad?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm wondering if we can't, I went down to the park last year, I thought the beer garden was a really great addition, and the 2 days I was there, it seemed like pretty sparse, so, I do think as a beer drinker, myself and a kid haver, that it would be, no, I think your point is well made. Like Anthony said, the object is to raise money for a good cause, and I personally didn't see any residents, this is anecdotal, I didn't see any residents abusing any of it, and I thought it was working very smoothly, so I would certainly consider, I'm only one vote, and can only be, one vote, but I would certainly consider opening it up to the entire park for sure.
And just for the record, we had 0 problems with any patrons with alcohol consumption last year.
No over drinking, none of the scary stuff that we thought.
Nobody got cut off, no police interactions, nothing.
If anything, they didn't drink enough, right?
Yeah, if anything. But it's not like a Steelers game where people drink ahead of time and they go down to Crafton and celebrate. Like, that is not what's happening. It's just a family festival where people want to go down and enjoy a drink.
Okay, can we entertain an amendment to the
Yes.
motion?
Yeah, as long as the motion and the seconder agree, we can do that.
So, do we have someone who would like to amend the motion to allow a less restrictive, as long as insurance and the PA liquor commission allows it?
Right.
And our insurance.
I said insurance and the PA liquor. Because I think, if I recall correctly,
Yeah, and I will make a new motion
amended.
so that we make it a little bit more friendly for the majority of the people that attend because they have children. Provided that it meets the Liquor Control Board's standards, that it meets our insurance standards.
Go ahead.
I think your wording was pretty good. Can we just take your wording of the video and use that?
Yeah.
Sure.
But if
I
you're the
do.
secretary, you
Yeah,
have to
I do.
agree.
I agree.
Okay.
So now we have a motion and a second that's been amended.
Okay, any other discussion around that?
Yeah, I wonder if we could find a middle ground. Instead of taking the fence down, perhaps letting kids under 10 with accompanied by their parents.
So
Can't do that.
I think this is going to be a liquor control and an insurance issue. And so what I'm, to speak directly, my interest is giving them the permission to move forward to find a sponsor, if they can do it in time, and that our wording puts it back on the insurance company and the PA liquor control, because I believe those were our limitations last year, if I remember correctly. So instead of trying to figure out what they can do, we'll find out with this motion, if we pass this motion as it stands.
So, if I can
Go right
ask
ahead.
a question to Mr. Amendola's point, which is a good point. If the law of the land allows something as if what he's describing to occur, it would then occur, is what your point is to that?
If everything else falls in line.
Correct.
You know, if the right licensing
Sure.
happens, the right insurance happens.
But of course,
Set up.
if the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board law does not allow something like that, then obviously it would not occur.
Right.
Okay.
Actually, so my question would be, so now we're looking at the perimeter of the park, but let's say the PLCB or the insurance comes back and says, well, no, you can't do it to the perimeter, however, you can do it X amount of feet. Would this motion allow
Yes, that,
to stay within,
right, I think.
so the outer limits would be the park?
Well, I think what the limits are gonna be is what our insurance provider and the PA board will allow.
Okay.
Okay? And that I believe from my past experience, from remembering last year and also having been part of the library, Oktoberfest a couple of years ago, I believe that there is a limitation by the Liquor Control Commission that is going to govern what we can and cannot do.
Okay. So this gate essentially gives them the rein to,
Right.
so say,
So
push
if
the
that
limit,
gives
so to say.
Crafton Celebrates, if we vote for this, the opportunity to move forward, find a sponsor, and then figure out what we're allowed to do. And to know that they've got a little more leeway from council if the Liquor Control Board and insurance allows us to do that. Does that work for you, Angela? Okay,
May I ask one question?
please.
To the point of which we're describing the squishy kind of amorphousness of the Pennsylvania liquor control laws, which is, you know, visiting, is this something that Mr. Corbell's office can bring back kind of in writing and codify, so for future councils, future events such as Oktoberfest, Crafton Celebrates, or we would have a kind of a better understanding as to, you know, what we can allow to have happen, so that we can kind of head out the middleman?
We can certainly tell you what those sort of events liquor licenses require, et cetera. We can certainly do that. But it depends on the license, et cetera. There are a lot of, there are a lot of different ones. So it's not as easy as just saying, here's the 6 things you need to know. It's more case by case.
That was kind of where I was going with that, so thank you for your clarification.
Any other questions, discussion at this point? Marcia?
A container walking around the park, they hand off to somebody else. How is that going to be controlled?
Everybody gets a wristband, just like last year. So when you go in, well, last year when we had the guard, you go in, and once you're carded, you get the wristband on your wrist. So if somebody doesn't have a wristband and they're drinking the beer, then they're not allowed to be drinking the beer, then the police would be there for that.
I'm just not in favor of opening up the gates. You know, if they want to drink, they can stay inside the fence.
So you would be in favor if the Liquor Control
If-
Board?
Yes, if it's the same as last year, where they stayed inside the fence.
You'd be okay with having
I
kids
don't
inside?
like people walking around the park with beer, period.
I mean, I think it's just up for this body to discuss in an open way. I mean, I think Fred makes good points, and his background as a law enforcement officer probably helps to give him that perspective. I mean, I grew up in a family of bar owners and beer distributor owners, so I certainly understand where you're coming from. Last year, I thought the beer garden was a little dead, to be honest with you. I don't think you would disagree with that. I mean, please, you don't have to.
No, I agree with you. The beer
That was-
garden could have had more business
Right.
had we not had the fence. We
Right.
sold just shy of $3,000 in beer last year, which it could have been much more an opportunity for a nonprofit to make money for their organization.
Right, and so when you weigh kind of, well, when you weigh the manpower that it takes for a nonprofit to bring their volunteers down to raise this money, if they're not getting a return on their investment, so to speak, that's probably why you're having a hard time finding somebody that might want to do it, I would guess. So I think it would be in our best interest, if we're gonna go put our feet in the water, to just jump in the pool and make a decision one way or the other, pick a lane. So I'm mixing metaphors now, but you can remember. Thank you, Madam President.
So any other discussion? Will we take a roll call vote on this, please?
Okay, do you want to clarify the
Okay, so-
and the
Okay, so
motion?
basically we have a motion to allow Crafton Celebrates to have a beer garden sponsored by one of our not-for-profit organizations under the same condition as last year, with the added codicil that provided or based on insurance requirements and the Pennsylvania liquor control, that they could loosen the area where liquor is allowed. Have I stated that fairly?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Amendola,
No.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Blosser,
Yes.
Ms. Nemitz,
No.
Ms. Lavasser.
No.
3 yeses, 3 noes.
Can we entertain a more restrictive motion?
I have
The
the mayor and the mayor's.
Is the mayor allowed to vote on that specific type?
Any other
Because
business law?
all business, okay, very good.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, you have the option of breaking the tie if you wish, or tabling the matter.
Too late to table, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you. So, you're good to go.
Thank you.
But we're gonna have to talk to the liquor.
Yeah.
And the insurance. Right, I don't think the liquor control board isn't going to be as loose.
Well, I'm all for the beer thing, but
Two different motions. Really bad.
All right. Moving right along. So we have the president's report, and since I've only been sitting here for 20 minutes, Philip, did you have anything you had wanted to bring up tonight?
I'm just gonna bring it up under the committee structure.
Okay.
Committee reports.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Then moving right along to the mayor's report.
And the mayor will apologize to everyone at council. I have a report, and I left it on the dining room table. And I'll bring it up at the next meeting, thank you.
Okay, all right. Do we have, okay, all right, we'll let that go. Solicitor's report.
I did not leave mine on the dining room table. I was just simply, RJ asked me to just raise the traffic ordinance that was tabled at the last meeting to see where everybody wanted to go with it. If you would consider the ordinance as drafted and presented at the last meeting, you could vote on it today if you wanted to. But if there are portions of it that you'd like to change or break apart, we'll have to re-advertise that for a future meeting.
So shall we have some discussion from council on that point? or-
Actually,
I'm just looking for direction.
I'm gonna make a motion. I motion to
Well, first you have to take it off the table. If you're not going to do anything with it, it has to be removed from the table. Right, because it was tabled, right? You voted at the
Okay.
table.
Yes.
So you would have to vote to remove it from the table.
So can I motion to vote to remove it from the table?
Yes, you
I motion to vote to remove it from the table.
I second that.
can. Okay, you can discuss it.
Any,
No debate on tabling, but you can debate removing it from the table.
okay, so we can debate
Yes.
removing it from the table. Any objections to removing the traffic and parking ordinance that we tabled last 29th? No objections?
we're gonna have a discussion about that ordinance,
Well, what we have to do is, no, we do not have to have that discussion now.
because I wanna have that discussion.
Okay, we can have it, basically, but what's on the table is taking it off the table so that we can make a motion.
Madam President,
To make a motion to what, pass it as it is?
No.
just
Comes back for the last time.
so we can go
Okay.
ahead and bring it
Just
back.
All right, so we have a call to vote, and that is to take the voting on the ordinance off or
To put it
off
back
the
on
table,
the-
pull it back on the table for discussion.
For
We'll do a roll
discussion.
call for discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Amendola,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Glosser,
Yes.
Ms. Dammit,
Yes.
Ms. Lavassia.
Yes.
Okay, so now,
We can talk.
There'll be public comment about this, too, correct?
okay, do we take?
So council has options. Someone can make a motion to approve the ordinance as it was presented 2 weeks ago, or we can simply discuss it without making a motion, I assume. My understanding was that the issue was on one part of the ordinance and not on the other, that the stop sign placement at Harris and Clearview up there weren't objections to, but the objections were related to the parking, right?
That's my understanding as well.
The manager was gonna provide some diagrams to
I
clear the
believe
fogginess.
I believe there are some in the,
I think they were supposed to be in
Did
the
the-
packet.
did you all see that? Okay, you got it, good.
So just to reiterate my point, if council would like to consider just one of those two, meaning just the stop sign,
I know you didn't get a chance to look at anything.
or just the no parking, we would have to re-advertise this ordinance. So one motion could be to direct me to advertise the stop sign ordinance for the no parking offense. We could do that too. Yeah, this is your game, I'm just throwing the option.
No, Madam President, ask a question.
Please.
Okay, so last week, I'm gonna admit that even though I live over here, I was a bit fuzzy on what exactly that we were discussing because it seemed as though it encompassed a couple different streets and things. So if I'm understanding Mr. Corbel correctly, that we would be able to split these two things apart, correct?
Right, but you could consider them this evening, you'd have to direct me to advertise
Re-advertise.
which portion or both or not, whatever, and then it would be up for consideration probably based on unless you wanted me to advertise in the Post-Gazette. I could advertise in the Post-Gazette for the next meeting, but
I
otherwise we
think
have
there's
to
really
wait.
cost implications there. aren't
It's
there?
very costly in the Post-Gazette. If we do the Gazette 2.0, we'd probably have to wait a month, but it would be much cheaper to advertise there, by hundreds of dollars.
Please.
So with that under consideration, my understanding from the manager, and I'm not gonna speak for her since she's not here, but her thoughts were that, similar to Madam President's thoughts were that we didn't wanna do the second advertising because it would be cost prohibitive. If I understand?
Well,
I actually disagree. The manager said that she recommended all the changes as advertised.
exactly.
Okay,
You're correct.
all right, thank you. All right.
Yeah, so that was our recommendation from the manager, the recommendation. So the discussion here is based on last meeting's community input in our vote. Do we want to have a motion to pass it as is? Do we want a motion to split it up? What do we want to do with this in order to move forward?
I make a motion. I'd like to make a motion now to split up the two items that are on here, the stop sign and the parking.
Okay, and that includes the parking on Johnson
On
as well?
Johnson and also on West Crafton Avenue going down to Steuben Street. And Kreml.
Yeah, so all of the parking issues in a separate,
And a
split it up,
separate,
and then the stop
and then the
sign.
stop signs.
I'll second that. I'll second that motion.
Well, I'd like to amend that.
She made a motion.
Okay, we have to have a second.
And there was a second.
Okay, and then we can continue discussion, comment, amend, whatever.
Yeah.
So would you like to speak, Philip?
I follow where you're going. I think that the less controversial items being the Harris Ave, Clearview, and the Johnson Street should be grouped together. And then the more controversial topic being Cornell should be its own. That's just my opinion. Is that, are we able to?
And then do we have the option to do it all together and vote it right now or do some more investigation?
Can we have some more discussion?
Sure.
May I address?
Sure, please.
I was in favor of tabling this
Mhm.
because I didn't like the way it was advertised. It was advertised with all three of those things put together. And when I asked the question, why was it advertised that way? The answer I got was to save money. There are three different particular situations. I think there needs to be more discussion on Cornell. I think we talked about 2 weeks ago, perhaps, looking into making Johnson Street one way. So if there's a motion on the floor tonight, I think it should be for putting the stop signs on Borough Avenue. And, we need more discussion on the rest of that. We need discussion about if the residents there would really like it to be one way, perhaps like a survey. Maybe the borough can survey the people on that street and get their input, because it's their street, as to whether they want it one way. But I've seen this before where things have been grouped together, and I don't think it's a good idea, that we're grouping them together to save money. I mean,
Right. So
they're
then
individual situations.
Okay, so then are you recommending where Alice's motion was to split it in two, that we would actually take everything but the stop sign off? And
Yeah, I think
and
the
study
stop
the
sign
other
is
two
fine.
issues?
I think we all agree on that.
so
but-
we would have to advertise
But to
that change.
re-advertise it, because
Okay.
that's separate. Just for the record, I think that this was handled this way for a couple reasons. One, there were several meetings in a row where these different traffic issues came up. And we were waiting for input from Rob and from the police department, et cetera. And it all sort of came together at the same time. My office drafted this, including the East Crafton parking, and we presented this as a draft to council and then sought permission to advertise it.
Right.
The council voted to advertise it with them all combined. So in the future, I will advertise them separately, combined, 2 together, 10 together, 1 together,
So-
whatever you all want, I will do. But I just want to make sure that it's clear that my office, we did exactly what council asked us to do at that time. And I know hindsight's 20/20, but just so.
So we're having hindsight here.
Yeah, that's okay, that happens, I mean, you guys are doing something in a very open and transparent way with this, and that happens. So if you would like the flexibility to vote one off, then maybe we should advertise them separately in the future. And that's what we can do tonight, we can decide to do that.
So, given what I'm hearing in, Ron Pable, I'm sorry? the
Yes.
mayor,
Can I just address the Johnson Street issue?
Please do.
When they combined this, all three of these issues, I thought it was gonna make it difficult, which it's turning out to be. Johnson Street, I requested the, no parking on one side initially for public safety reasons. Get the fire equipment, we were able to get fire equipment down the street. 2 weeks ago at a council meeting, Mrs. Muth came in and suggested one-way parking, which has nothing to do with the ordinance that was presented for the one-side
Was she
parking.
talking about one-way parking or one-way traffic?
One-way traffic.
Okay.
Yeah, and parking, but the one-way on, or the no parking on one side was brought up and has been waiting to be passed. The signs are ready and everything. There was a study, there was a, by the police department, Public Works, about the width of the street. That ordinance should have been passed over a month ago, prohibiting the parking on one side. Now, there was no discussion on a one-way street at all. It was a
So that could be
suggestion made
taken
by
as
a
a-
resident
That could be
at
taken
the
as
last
a-
meeting.
Okay,
So that issue could be brought up at a later date. The Clearview, I think that the Clearview Avenue stop sign is one thing, the Johnson Street, one side parking is another issue, and the Cornell Avenue, West Crafton Avenue thing is a third issue. That issue needing more discussion and input. But I think council
and
should
that
move.
Johnson being one way is a totally separate issue.
And that's a totally separate issue that council can get involved in. As Mr. Amendola suggested, check with the neighbors and see what they think. But we've already decided, or council needs to vote on
Okay.
the one side
That's
part.
good.
The one-way street thing's a totally different issue. Thank you.
Yeah, Johnson Street, like the
So
mayor
you've
said.
got your public works director hat on, Mr. Kazarowski?
Yeah, I think we switched.
There you go.
The Johnson Street issue, like the mayor says, is a public safety concern. The street measurements doesn't work out for parking on both sides.
Right.
A resident came in and made a request to look at it one way. My recommendation would be convert to no parking on one side, see how that works. If the issue still arises, to come back, and it probably would work better two ways, with no parking on one side than convert it to one way, because you're gonna limit the parking regardless.
Okay.
If any issues arise after it's converted to no parking on one side, they consider the one-way option. I wouldn't jump into it right away until you see how the no parking issues address the residents' concern.
Okay, so then the motion we actually have at this point would include the Johnson Street parking on one side and the stop sign as separate one that we could vote to advertise. That's what our motion is right now. And given the mayor's and the public works director input, Fred, what are your thoughts? Does that answer your thoughts?
That makes
We'll
sense
consider that?
what the mayor said,
Okay.
sure.
All right.
But the motion on right now is to split the parking and stop sign motion that was
We could try to amend it.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion on the table. Does council have any other input, questions? It's a motion that isn't on the agenda, so we
Just,
will go
I
ahead.
hate to be obtuse, but
Okay,
following along, but just clarify one more time for me?
okay. Steve, would you mind?
So the motion on the table is to simply split the stop signs from the parking issue.
Except for Johnson, we're keeping Johnson. Okay.
Is that?
That's not
That's not how it was said,
originally
so
stated,
if
right.
we want to get there, someone would have to offer an amendment.
Oh, okay.
Alice would have to
Okay.
accept
That's
it.
why I was asking.
Okay, then I misunderstood.
So is somebody on council like to make that amendment and see if Ms. Glaser will accept it? Were you the seconder?
I was the seconder.
So someone that's not the seconder or the motioner should make that amendment or offer that amendment. So Philip or Marcia
Or Fred.
or Fred. Or nobody.
Be my guest.
Okay.
All right,
So then we're back at,
We're back
back
to
at
the-
just
So you
the
can-
stop sign.
somebody-
Just the stop sign.
I mean, it's
Okay.
just kind of, if we're gonna, well, we just would move on with public comment and then we'd have to vote on it. And if it doesn't pass,
Then
we can make another
forward.
motion.
Okay.
for you.
All right. So any community comment about specifically the motion which is for the stop sign? Is that correct?
To go
Yeah, the
forward.
motion to
Go with-
split.
Split it.
It's the
Stop
motion to
signs,
split,
split the parking.
not the
Right.
individual issues,
Right.
Yeah.
to split it.
Yes.
So it's my understanding that if the motion passes to split these ordinances into two separate issues, let's say, this would delay, let's say, the passing or a vote on Johnson Street, for instance, or adding the stop sign. Is
Well,
that correct?
so basically, the motion at hand would split to the stop sign. That does not mean that once we do that, that someone else might make a motion about Johnson or any of the other items. So what's on the table does not rule out getting Johnson back on track.
Okay, because the reason behind it is I actually encourage council. I know the mayor came a long time ago. I was actually shocked because I know I have my own parking issues. I was very shocked that these were all wrapped together. I was also very shocked at how long this process has been. It's been over a year that I've been talking with council, and when RJ first started, the first time I ever met her, within one of her first couple weeks here, I brought the issue up to her. There's been a lot of studying done, and this is kind of ridiculous. It's a safety hazard. This stuff needs to be addressed, and I encourage council to address it tonight, not keep
All
tabling it
three
for
of
next
them?
week.
All three? Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, so we have the motion to split the parking, the parking.
And the stop sign, separate.
Okay. At this point, let's take a vote. Let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Amendola,
Yes.
Mr. Crowder,
Yes.
Ms. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Glosser,
Yes.
Ms. Dammit,
Yes.
Ms. Lavasser.
Yes.
Yes, 6.
Okay, so now we are left with
So it's been split.
It's been split.
Now,
We need a motion to
let me
advertise.
ask a question.
Okay, please.
Is everybody comfortable with me advertising the stop signs as proposed in the draft ordinance? Is that, which was on the stop sign at Clearview and Harris? Everybody comfortable with that?
And accepting the fact.
I thought we could vote on that.
I'm asking a question first, and then we'll figure out the motion. So is there any objections to doing that?
Well, I just want to clarify, and you're also advertising the fact that there wasn't on the books a stop sign on the bottom of Harris, but there is one in physicality, but in the ordinance there isn't. That's why we're gonna actually have one for the bottom of Harris and then one on Clearview, just make sure.
There's two different ones.
Right.
Yes, one on Clearview and then one on Harris.
Okay, so you're trying to
Okay,
take
so we're
the
good with
temperature
that. Yeah, so it sounds like we're okay on that. Now, with respect to the parking
on,
well, there's 3 parking situations. Would council like me to advertise all 3, or maybe just the Johnson Street option? And leave the other 2 for further discussion? That would be West Crafton and Crown.
I'm in favor. If you're asking a temperature and it's non-binding vote, I'm in favor of doing all of the stop signs in one group, as you
Yeah.
suggested, and parking issues in another, since they're parking related. That's what we're asking.
I mean, all together.
Correct.
so that would, then in effect push Johnson Street out further?
I'm gonna give, I think that Johnson Street should be, if the mayor is okay with it, advertise it, and then the Cornell situation, we need to have more discussion.
Anybody else in council?
Yes, I agree with Phil that, you know, the Cornell needs more discussion. You know, we keep hearing about public safety issues and danger and all of that. This council maybe needs to look at West Crafton Avenue on a Saturday, or a Saturday night, or a Sunday morning. Some cars are parked on the sidewalk and at both sides of the street. You talk about public safety, we would never get a fire truck through there. A fire truck going to the church or to the school would have to come up through the parking lot from Belmonte Pizza to get up to the back. No fire trucks are gonna get in that lower road, West Crafton Avenue.
So
That's a
Are you in
hazard. If
favor
we're gonna
of
talk
more
about
study,
Cornell.
or are you in favor of more study, or are you in favor of moving with the ordinance as it stands to prohibit parking?
If we're gonna prohibit parking on Cornell, then we need to start enforcing traffic parking on West Crafton Avenue between Cornell and the busway. Because we don't have to pass any ordinances or do anything with those. It's all posted, no parking. It's just not enforced, that's all.
I'm sorry.
Solicitor and then Brad.
I don't have a comment. I thought Philip had something to say.
I just wanted, I wanted a motion to authorize to advertise the ordinance.
No, have you read
The ordinance is pertaining Clearview Avenue, stop intersections, Harris and Clearview Ave, and the parking resolution, or the parking on Johnson Street, westerly side, and west, not the West Crafton, just the Johnson
So
Street.
we already have passed a motion for the stop signs. Did you want to make a motion for the parking on
I
Johnson?
thought he said that.
Well, this would he's making a motion to authorize me to advertise the stop sign in Johnson
Right.
only.
Only.
So that means West Crafton and Cornell will not be advertised at this time, but will be in council for further discussion and study. So that's a motion.
So that's a motion. Do we have a second to that motion? No? Hold on, go ahead.
It's like motion inception.
I know. Go ahead.
Before if I can speak to Fred's point, if I may, this is gonna shock the audience, but I agree with everything Fred said, and I think he's absolutely spot on. His part where he lives, across from St. Philip's, on Saturdays when there's a wedding, there's a communion, there's a baptism, then Sundays is, I mean, God forbid, you can't get anything down there. I've seen him try to park his car there sometimes, and I know for a fact he can't.
So do we already have no parking there?
I understand that.
Except Saturday and Sunday.
Pardon?
Except
Except Saturday and Sunday, I shared a picture with RJ.
Right,
This
yes,
ordinance-
we have that.
That parking ordinance really needs to be reviewed, and I will take on the task of doing that. I will look at those ordinances, and it was quite a few years ago, there's been no parking on the left side of West Crafton. However, a mayor came along and they put little signs up that say except Sunday and Monday, or Saturday and Sunday. So I need to review those.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to combine Johnson Street parking and the stop signs. We need a second.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have some discussion about that.
No, that sounds good, right?
Okay.
Johnson Street and stop.
Public comment about combining Johnson Street parking and the stop signs. Roy?
Sorry.
That's okay.
You're absolutely right. Roy Neiman, 102 Crafton.
Your hat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. You're absolutely right. It is a danger, and I go there.
Right, okay, but what we are talking about right now, Roy, is
Oh.
about putting Johnson Street and the parking together and excluding, so we don't have, we don't have Cornell and West Crafton. So your comment has to do with something that's not on the table right now.
I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
That's okay, it's
Oh my
fine to
God.
keep track, we're like going loose, fast and loose here tonight.
I concur that it's hard to keep track of what's going on.
Okay. All
I
right,
apologize.
Any other community comment about combining the stop signs and Johnson Street parking?
One comment, and it was from Mrs. Muth, as long as they're gonna take a look at it, possibly if they had to turn that one way Johnson
Right,
Street, then I
and
think you're
we've
being
had a
fair about the
discussion,
whole
that will
thing.
be a separate thing that we will take under
As
consideration.
long as they take a look at it. Because when
Okay.
you're living there and all of a sudden all the cars and nobody's parking right, and the frustration level gets up.
All right. Any other discussion on council? So can we take a roll call vote for advertising the stop sign and the stop signs and Johnson Street parking together?
Mr. Amendola,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus, Ms. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Glosser,
Yes.
Ms. Dammons,
Yes.
Ms. Wagasser.
Yes.
Yes, 6.
Last thing under my report, we're going to have an executive session at the conclusion of the meeting to discuss property matters and contract matters and to obtain legal advice of the solicitor. That's the end of my report.
Okay, and I have a very brief manager's report that I'll read in my current role as administrative committee. Just give me a second to get to it. All right, so the manager has a report about the CDBG Community Development Block Grant Award. In November 2018, Crafton applied for this CDBG funding via the Char West COG for assistance in reconstructing 10 ADA accessible sidewalk ramps within and surrounding the downtown business district. Last week, we were informed that our funding request was fully approved in the amount of $28,000, with Crafton's required match coming in at just under $16,000. Funding for this project was originally requested in the 2017 application cycle, CDBG year 44, but was not awarded. The borough manager and Gateway engineers adjusted the application narrative and the ADA ramp maps based on the year 44 feedback and reapplied for the 2018 cycle. Charwest Cog handles the bidding of the CDBG projects considered COG-wide improvements and will likely go out to bid in early 2020, with Crafton's engineers scheduling construction in springtime of 2020. Crafton's match will be included in the 2020 budget cycle. Typical practice in prior years has been to allocate ADA ramp costs to the road fund. Any questions, comments?
Bravo, RJ Sesko. Bravo.
Good job, Gateway Engineering.
And Gateway Engineering.
Yeah, I believe there's a list, it's probably in our packet, and we can.
It should be listed actually photographed. We did that several times, I did a film.
The guy to take Phillips Hill will be part of that?
Yeah.
I believe that was on there,
Yes, I think when I asked before it was.
Okay, all right, so, I will, look at where that is and make sure that, you see it, make sure. All right. Then we'll move to, Parks and Recreation. Do we have any reports from Parks and Recreation? No? Public Safety?
Yeah. I spoke with the police chief this morning, and he's informed me that the new candidate has taken his physical last week and is scheduled next week for his eye exam and his psychological test, Monday and Tuesday. Eye exam, psychological test. And if everything goes well, then they are predicting a start date of August 1st.
Okay, anything else?
Oh, yes, fire department. I spoke with the fire chief, and he would like to call a little meeting of myself and the president and the manager and the solicitor to discuss the truck, number one, and a real estate issue.
Okay.
So he'd like to have that little meeting between myself, the president, the solicitor, and the manager sometime in the next 2 weeks, so that perhaps we can talk about it.
And if there's real estate involved, then we'll share it with council?
Yes.
In executive session?
Yes.
And move it forward?
Yes.
Okay, and the truck issue is the one that there's a regular scheduled every 10 years, and he has a plan, is that?
Yes.
Okay, so just to clarify, our volunteer fire department has 3 major pieces of equipment that generally have a 30-year life cycle, and that for quite some time they've been staggered so that every 10 years there is an expectation that one of those pieces is going to have to be replaced. And the fire chief has come to us to say that he wants to discuss his plan for what the next piece we're going to replace, and to let the community know he's got a budget neutral plan to talk to us about. Okay?
That's all I have.
All right. Public Works?
Yes. So, good evening. I just wanted to bring up a couple of issues. As we all know, we passed a new shade tree ordinance that brings us into compliance with state code. Over the past several months, we've engaged with the community on issues regarding the shade trees, and it's become abundantly clear and that we need to potentially augment our shade tree budget. A few weeks ago, we had an unfortunate situation with a shade tree at 409 Harris that fell and struck a home, and luckily nobody was hurt. The Public Works Department and the Police Department responded. That was right prior to our adopting the ordinance, so there was perceived gray area in the situation. However, moving forward, the managers informed me that our liability insurance, is that correct? So our liability insurance will be paying the deductible. There also was a vehicle that was damaged, and therefore, I'd like to discuss potentially addressing any issues that the Public Works or the code enforcement or any other community member brings to our attention with regards to these liabilities that are outstanding. We are going to have a borough-wide inventory of our shade trees, which will inform the next, will hopefully inform the next budget cycle. However, I am very concerned about these issues pertaining to shade trees. It seems as if the responsibility of these shade trees have been pushed on to the homeowners for many, many years. There's been opinions going back to the year 2000 that the borough manager uncovered through her file research, where the borough solicitors explained to previous councils that these trees need to be managed by the borough because we have this program. So with that, I hope that council is sympathetic to the issues that the manager brings forth in regards to tackling this backlog of maintenance and removal. We're going to be experiencing probably another, how do I put this? We're gonna have another fun storm season, everyone. And we had a little bit today, and I just don't want to see anybody get hurt with these trees. And you know, they're big and beautiful, but we visibly see some of the impairment. But some of the impairment you can't see. And there was a tree right near my home actually that we thought was fine, and we were sad to see it go, but it got caught in the investigation up there on Bar, and you know, it had to come down. There's a couple others that had to come down, so we're going to be exhausting our budget. You know, we had $10,000 in there, so as you know, Public Works Director Kazarowski and Borough Manager Susko, you know, continue to receive feedback. I think it's just in our best interest to manage these liabilities proactively, and I'm very happy that the Shade Tree Commission is working with the borough manager to address a borough-wide inventory so we can budget accordingly. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next item. I've been working with Gateway Engineer, the borough manager, and the Carlton School District School Board President on facilitating the application that's due June 28th for the Crafton Boulevard project. We had a breakthrough last week. The school district was able to find a phone number for one of the conservancy members, and the conservancy member agreed to sign a memorandum, and I'm going to ask that the solicitor update council on that, and that we should have a memorandum of understanding hopefully in the next couple of weeks to go along with the application. And again, this application is not a commitment of Carlton School District or the borough to accept the funding that may or may not come, but this is to show that we are going to be working together because the property is owned by the Carlton School District. The Conservancy owns the back property where the outfall for the stormwater management system would be, and so all the pieces are falling in place. And I hope the manager, the new council president, and the rest of council and public, our Public Works Committee can continue to facilitate the good work of Gateway and the manager.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Krause, do you have anything to add?
I do not. That concludes our report.
All right. Moving right along to administration, we have a motion to accept the resignation of Councilman Abby Rosario effective June 10th, today, from his borough council term ending December 31st. The agenda says yes, that is correct, 2021.
I make a motion to accept Abby Rosario's resignation from Crafton Borough.
Second.
Any discussion? Do we have a roll call vote?
Mr. Amendola?
Yes.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes?
Ms. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Glosser?
Yes.
Ms. Nimitz?
Yes.
Ms. Savassi?
Yes.
So Abby has officially resigned from council, and we wish him the best in his new endeavor at the brewery.
May I ask a question?
Please.
So, we already had some citizen comment to this effect, and obviously this is a very hot button topic, so what is, I won't hold the audience, they're probably waiting on bated breath. What's the process here about how, Mr. Corporal, Madam President, how we plan on replacing Mr. Rosario?
I will just say this, that the Borough Code requires you to replace them within 30 days.
Oh, my.
And that's it.
All right, so we have quite a bit of latitude, so let's have some discussion about what you think would be the best way to do this.
Well, since you're asking my opinion as a member
I
of
am.
council, I think that we need to be very cautious and transparent, since there are a lot of folks watching what we do. And whether we agree or disagree on particular issues, we do set a tone in the borough, and we are all probably responsible for that, the tone that we set. And, there's a lot of different residents out there with a lot of different skill sets, a lot of people that want to get involved. We see it all the time. We see people come here, speak their minds, which is a great thing, and we see folks apply for the Shade Tree Commission, for the library board, to run the pool, to do Crafton Celebrates. Well, this is the board that oversees those boards. This is where that buck stops. I think we need to tap into some of the creative talents of the borough, some of the administrative talents of the borough, some of the various talents of the borough, and bring them and let people have a say in who they, let people apply, essentially, advertise for it. I know that I met you back in 2017, and you helped get me elected to this seat, and if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And that we talked a lot at length in 2017, and we've talked in 18 and early 19 about transparency and making sure that we were being transparent. And with your appointment as council president, we set a new tone for the borough, and I think it would be in our best interest to utilize this fresh start going forward to make sure that we have a fair and transparent process so that everyone can be involved.
Do you have something to suggest specifically how you think this might work best?
I mean, I followed very closely through the Post-Gazette and on the media when Lieutenant Governor Fetterman became the Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, and in Braddock, which is close to where my parents grew up. They had a very contentious process there, and as I'm certain we will have here. But it's important that I think what we should do is set an application deadline when we will take applications, review them here at council, have our candidates come down. Some people are on the ballot now. And we could skin this cat a couple different ways. We could take an application, or we could consider some of the other candidates that are in the primary that, had quite a few votes. So I would leave that to this body to deliberate. After all, I'm only one vote of 6. But I do think that we should take applications, yes, Madam President.
I also make a suggestion that we open it up, applications or
Letters
sent
of
in.
interest.
Yes, letters of interest sent in, and it has to be we have to have it within 2 weeks. Would be the deadline, because we need to have someone in within 30 days, you said.
Right, so we have 30 days, and if we don't appoint within 30 days, what happens?
Then the vacancy board is convened, and the vacancy board consists of the remaining members of council, so the 6 of you, and the vacancy board chair, whoever that is out there.
Which is David O'Brien.
Mr. O'Brien. He would chair the meeting, and council would vote along with Mr. O'Brien for appointment.
And we have 15 days after that.
That's 15 days after the 30 days. So it's
So-
45 total.
Right.
And if you can't come to a decision then for whatever reason, the vacancy board chair, Mr. O'Brien, would have the right to petition the court, and then judge downtown would appoint somebody. That rarely happens, but it does.
It's in our interest to get the advertising out, get the letters of interest in, and we'd like to have each of the people who have letters of interest, we want to have them speak to council, speak to the community.
I mean, I think as we all sit up here and speak our minds every other Monday, I think it would only be fair to have those people interested in doing that to partake in the same process. I know it can be a little awkward to be on the other side of the mic, I get that, but I think it would be fair to do it that way.
Okay, and
Just one consideration.
Okay, so just to be clear, what we are talking about is the unfilled term from 30 days from now till the end of this year, because there will be a whole other issue of the unfilled portion for 2020 and 2021 to be on the general election ballot. And there's a bit of unclarity about how you get on that ballot at this point, but we will get that information and we will announce it and publish it to make sure that the community understands what that process will be.
I don't know the deadlines, et cetera, but what I can say is that every summer I get in a municipal election year, I get a listing from the county elections department that says these are the offices that shall appear on the ballot. Are there any vacancies? Have there been any vacancies in the meantime? So I will be required to report that to the county elections division. How you get on the ballot and all that sort of thing, I don't know exactly how that goes. We have an idea, but we need to clarify that with county elections. And anybody could call and ask. We can call and ask. You know, I'm not exactly sure on the deadlines, but there is a process to get on the ballot that I think deals with political parties, and then someone could run a write-in campaign for the seat.
But we'll
get the definite answers for you.
A 2-year term.
It would be for a 2-year term.
Unfilled 2-year term.
Just one question, when you do advertise, I think you need to be clear how long that appointment will be in place.
Right.
Just to the end of the year, or is it?
It's
It
just
is till the end of the year, that's what I'm clarifying. It's
It's-
that the thing that we're discussing right now is to fill that seat between now and the end of the year. Maybe
So-
I've got a question. Yeah,
Question.
yes.
Is there a requirement to advertise, or does it just need to be?
No, we can,
You put it out on the Borough website, you put it out on the Savvy Citizen, and let the community know that there's a
yeah,
vacancy on
there's no
council.
requirement on the process. That's what
I'm
solicitor.
gonna motion to authorize to advertise for the seat of council and have it due by
Next meeting.
the next meeting.
I second that motion.
No, but advertising, you want to be specific with advertising?
Let's discuss the specifics.
The specifics being in the Post Gazette West and the Gazette 2.0, and in addition, Savvy Citizen and the Borough website.
I don't know.
It's gonna take a lot of time.
I don't know if
We could put it on our website, we could do the Savvy Citizen, but I
We
think the
can announce it
newspaper
here.
thing takes a little
No,
longer.
okay,
doesn't
do
it?
we know?
My comment was going to be along the lines of the Gazette 2.0, that the deadlines there are very far in advance, and I do not have the schedule with me, but there is a very strong possibility that it would not hit until after the next council meeting, because they publish every other week, I think, and you have to get the advertisement to them a week or so before. So to put it in the Post Gazette, that's up to council. You know, you can certainly do that, but I don't want the motion at the Gazette 2.0 to hamstring us, you know, because I'm not so sure that we can get it in there in time.
I think, I'm gonna just be really blunt. I think everyone is a little worried about what everyone else might try to do at this time in the lead up to get somebody on council. I think it's pretty obvious, so let's just let that out and have that discussion. Where I stand, you know, I hear everything Mr. Corbell is saying. I think that obviously advertising something that wouldn't even meet the deadline of the next meeting is probably superfluous and obviously not a good idea, but some form of robust advertisement is needed, and I think most of the members of council would agree with that, I would hope. So whether it be a combination of the website, Savvy Citizen, posting it on the door of the church, you know, kind of thing, Martin?
So,
Can I interrupt you? I mean, sorry to interrupt.
no,
We authorize to advertise things that aren't even necessary to authorize to advertise with regards to other committees, commissions, et cetera. This is a very important seat. So at a minimum, I think it needs to be advertised in print, in a paper within the period.
one that publishes within the timeframe. Is that
Right.
what you're saying? So would you
That would be the
amend?
Post-Gazette.
Yeah, okay.
That would be the Post-Gazette.
Well, I thought as long as you were acting on this, if you do nothing for 30 days, then that's when the vacancy board comes in.
The deadline has started. Once council accepted Mr. Rosario's resignation, the 30-day period begins to run. And it will expire on July 11th, 10th, 11th, I think, because we don't necessarily count, I don't think we count today. So that means council, if you're going to appoint at currently advertised meetings, the last meeting before that would be Monday, July 8th.
I see.
That you would have until then.
Yeah. So with the, you know, Mr. Mayor, I don't want you to roll your eyes at me, but would we call a special session if is it possible to do? I mean, I'm just asking a question. I mean, I'm not saying.
You can have a special meeting of council, but the advertisement must run 24 hours before the meeting.
Yeah.
So if you were to meet on July 8th,
Which is our next,
or that would be the last meeting before. Like if you're asking for people to send letters of interest and you're going to interview them around at your next meeting and then vote, you can vote after that at that meeting, or you can vote at your following meeting. But if you wait till July 8th and council does not reach agreement, the mayor would also have the option to break a tie, but and he doesn't have to do that. He can, again, as I said, it's his option. So if council were to meet on the 8th and not decide, you would not have enough time, I don't believe, to advertise a special meeting by the 11th. So it would hit the paper 24 hours, so it would have to get in on the 10th.
I gotcha.
It would be cutting it very close, so you could be then moving it to the vacancy board where Mr. O'Brien would arguably cast a tie-breaking vote, but people can change their votes.
so Philip, would you be happy with a motion that says that we get it in print along with every other
Yes.
possible?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion that says a print option for advertising plus everything else that we can reasonably do in that time with a deadline.
No, I'm
No.
wondering who's defining reasonable, and I just want to be.
Okay, well then we can define that.
No, I'm not asking, I'm just asking a question is, who's gonna make that call? RJ, you and Fred?
I think you all should decide.
We
what
can
the
decide tonight. I mean, we
Okay,
can
that's
put it,
just-
you know,
I'm just
it's like
asking a
we've had a suggestion, the door, Savvy
Right.
Citizen, the website, and then of course mentioning it here,
Right.
where, when we put it up on YouTube, we typically have 20 to 80 and sometimes 100 or more views.
Right, so.
Is there any other suggestions about where else we ought to put it besides,
Facebook,
pardon?
Facebook. There's a neighborhood Facebook group for Crafton.
So it can be announced in any of the Facebook.
It's a Sunday prior to the council meeting?
That's up to you guys, whatever works for you. I mean,
Because we need to
You
take
would-
vote by July 8th.
well, by July 11th. Well, you just want to make sure that you have enough time to review the submissions before your meeting and maybe asking questions of the applicants.
So do we want the Friday before our meeting so that as council, we have an opportunity to look and be prepared for the Monday night meeting?
That would be the 21st.
Right, so the deadline for the applications would be the 21st. We're going to advertise on the website. We're going to advertise in print.
Right.
We're going to advertise on the website. We're going to put notices on the door.
Right. Yell it from the mountaintops.
Savvy Citizen, and any of the community, Crafton community Facebook pages that will take that announcement.
Time deadline, 21st, 5 noon, 5. So the manager has time to.
Well, then maybe can we make it noon on Friday, the 21st as the deadline? So that administrative staff has a chance to make sure that it's all on the drive for council to review over the weekend. Okay? No, what, you're Brad?
Yes, I'm sorry, some of my wife is texting.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
it's not your fault.
All right.
Bedtime. I'm just like, what? Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. And
Yeah,
our-
no, I think there's.
okay, so we're good with that, everybody is good with that? And are we in agreement that we're gonna ask the applicants to?
We're gonna vote on the 20, it's just,
No,
we're getting on the 21st to vote by the next meeting.
Right,
Which
so
is the
we may,
24th.
yes, so we may choose to vote,
Oh, okay.
we may choose to vote at the conclusion or deliberate. Let's get to the 21st, get the presentations, and what solicitor is saying is we have the option to vote either that night or at the next meeting.
Or to hold a special meeting in
Or to
between,
hold a special meeting in between.
whatever you choose.
And I'm not sure if we can figure that out at this moment, so we need to get that part done, unless somebody else has any.
I'm just
Covered
curious.
all bases there. I
Pardon?
think you've covered every base that we could possibly cover.
Okay, Philip?
Just going back to the time frame. So our next meeting's on June 24th, correct? And then we have to take action by July 11th? So my question is, why don't we give the public more time, at least give them that weekend until June, that way you give them an entire, at least entire, almost 2 weeks. And so that way, by Monday, the 24th, we could have it, and then we'd have it for the next, ever would have it for the next 2 weeks, and we could take action by our next scheduled meeting, July 8th, and if we need to have.
So are you saying that you're comfortable making the deadline to submit the applications on the day of our meeting? And not have an opportunity?
Yeah, that way we
to
can
review that?
distribute, the manager can distribute, and, hard copies to everybody here at the meeting. So let's say we set the deadline.
With no time for us to review it.
Well,
ahead of
we're not
time.
gonna take any action on June 24th, right?
We don't know that, but even if we are.
I'm just saying, if we-
Even if we are, do you want to not be prepared when the applicants come?
So
to
we're gonna
us?
have them speak, I guess I missed
I
something.
think there has been some discussion about.
Have them
having-
speak
yes,
on
The 24th.
the 24th.
Yes, so my proposal was to give council the opportunity over the weekend to review the applications so that we are prepared when the people who are interested in sitting on the board with us make their presentations.
Maybe we should sit up there and consider.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was just saying that, I'd like to give the public more time to respond and get the information disseminated, because we still don't, I guess my issue is, we don't know what
Okay,
the print
then-
schedule is, right?
Or the Post-Gazette, I don't even advertise by the end of this week, so.
Okay, so,
It'll be in by Friday, so they'll have a week's notice.
okay.
So you were hoping for 2 weeks, is what you're saying?
Right, I was hoping for 2 weeks, that way we get them all passed out to us, and then if we wanted to, the next meeting, you could have the presentation.
So, are you proposing that the deadline be noon on the day of our meeting,
Right,
which is the 24th? So that would give them 3 more days?
right.
What does everybody think?
Can we adopt some unanimous consent on this matter?
We could, maybe, we might have to vote.
With objections, if anyone
Yes,
objects?
okay. So.
What was that?
Okay, so basically,
That don't work.
okay, so
What did they say?
basically what we're trying to do is see if we can come to a consensus without going through motions. If we can't, we'll go through a motion. But what's on the table is to make the deadline to submit the applications to be noon on the day of our next meeting, which is June 24th, which would then give us all a few hours to look at the applications. We're talking about having the applicants talk to us, so we would just need to read their letters of interest before our meeting, so that we're prepared.
And to clarify, we don't have to take action at that meeting, because we have
No.
until the next meeting.
We have until the next meeting, we can decide what, at that meeting, whether we want to take action then, whether we want to deliberate a little bit more, whether we have a special meeting before the meeting on the 8th, or whether we'll take action on the 8th.
You know,
You're, well, you guys okay with me?
my thoughts?
Yes.
This body can do two things. They can appoint someone tonight
Mm-hmm.
here, or they can go all the way over here and do all the advertising with all the newspapers and drag it out for a month. You know, so I think somewhere in the middle is probably the best.
Okay, so,
And that means sticking to the website and Savvy Citizen and putting up a couple of signs, and we don't need to advertise in the Post-Gazette. I don't think we need to advertise in any newspaper. The newspapers are gonna pick it up that we're gonna be looking for a council person. I mean,
you make a good point.
Mr. Cook, is it true that we can just appoint someone right here tonight without any letters of interest?
Mr. President,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Is that, wait a minute, is that true?
Yes, you can.
We can
There is no legal
appoint someone here,
prohibition. Correct.
or we can go all the way over here and do all the advertising and do all that. Let's meet in the middle.
It's up to council.
Okay, that's my opinion, that's.
Okay, so your opinion, Mr. Kraus, you have?
I mean, I'm already hearing the whispers in the audience there, and so I'm feeling as much on the hot seat with this, because it is a very big decision. There is no way we can jam this through. We just can't. There's too much acrimony on this council as it is. I don't care if we have to advertise, you know, in Washington Post. We should be advertising regardless of what the Post-Gazette will write, or the local reporters will write, or whatever blog wants to write something, or who on Facebook wants to write. We can't do that.
So then, it sounds as though we need a motion, and I think that Philip had made a motion that had not been seconded. Do you want to clarify that motion, Philip?
Yeah, the motion on the floor is to authorize to advertise for the position of council person in digital form and in print by, and all applications or letters of interest to be due into council by June 24th, 2019 at noon. And specifically in print means the Post-Gazette.
Okay, so we have that motion on the table with that deadline in mind. Do we have a second?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, any further discussion on council?
I feel that we need to have it on Friday so we can review the applicants.
Okay.
I just don't think
So,
that
so,
we should
so I'd
wait.
like, can I amend?
12 noon.
I'd like to amend
Same day.
my motion to agree with Councilwoman Glasser to move the date to June 21st, 2019 at noon.
Friday before the council meeting, right?
Right,
I will concur, and I second.
okay. Any other discussion on council? No? It is open to the community to make comments on the motion. Do we have any comments?
Just curious, what's the cost of the Post-Gazette advertising? Is it minimal?
No, it's not minimal when it's legal.
I'd say it's probably close to $1,000.
Really?
Oh,
That's a lot of money, and I think when everybody's talking, you know, there's a lot of people that have shown interest. And through the Scuttlebutt, and through this town, and through the Crafton website, it'll be known who really wants to be interested. You don't need to spend $1,000 to make it be known. There's people in this room that are interested, and there's people that know. The word will get out, it'll be out in a hurry.
Okay, any
Wow.
other community?
I agree with that.
Okay, but any other community comments?
So yes, in regards to the format, I mean, print, it is important, but let's be honest. I mean, the newspaper, last time I picked up a newspaper, I can't tell you. It's gonna get out. Like, the word's gonna get out, whether it be Facebook, community group, whether it be Savvy Citizen, and
Thank you.
like Mr. Bloom said, we all know, in the last election, and the one thing I do encourage council is this transparency is great. Because the process to actually get on the ballot is extensive. So to just vote somebody on, it doesn't show good faith in council. So, and quite frankly, there were no Republicans running, and unofficial tally, there's currently 3 candidates on there. So the word is gonna get out that somebody's gonna run. So whether it be the current people or
Right, and we're
anybody else
talking
in the
about
council.
the position between now and the end of the year.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes, so it
tonight.
should be advertised to give people ample time. Print, not sure, but also the fact, I mean, reviewing the applications, I think Monday is more fair because it gives more time for people to have letters written. But not just that, an application process has not been defined by council. So what are you gonna advertise? A letter of interest, or is there an actual application process? Because that will change the deadline also. How much time it's gonna take for people to, but not just that, how many folks are actually gonna have?
All right, thank you.
To the points of the community, Mr. Bloom's point is well made, Mr. Saba's point is also well made. I think the divergence of opinions here, and to his point, they're both on the ballot, so they both have a dog in this race. So if we wanted to nominate somebody tonight, we could certainly do that, and I would suggest we do it by who had the highest primary vote in the last election, that would be Mr. Saba. I don't think that's right. I don't think this decision should be confined to this room and the people who only come down here every other Monday. We're not gonna do that game. Again, of course it's gonna be, we advertise things that are almost inconsequential to this borough to some points of view, in the newspaper, and we spend more than $1,000 a day. In fact, we spent over $2 grand to put 3 motions together. Now we're gonna spend another $1,000 or so to separate them again.
Mhm.
So if we think that because it's $1,000 and we're not gonna advertise things, is ridiculous. We have the ability to do it. We should be doing it. Ms. Perry?
And to Steve's point to the previous one about the traffic stuff, that was Gazette 2.0, which is less expensive.
Sure,
But your
I don't-
point,
That was
your point is well made.
I
Your
retract
point is
my
well
points.
made.
It was
So we
$100.
have, okay, so we have a motion that includes print, and we have a second. We have any amendments? So shall we take a roll call vote? And then we can discuss, or should we discuss exactly what we're going to advertise before we do it?
I thought we talked that we were.
Letters of interest,
The letters of interest,
and
I
have
had-
each person speak
speak
at the next meeting.
at the next meeting, and I had asked that it would be in on Friday, the 21st, instead
They-
of Monday, the 24th.
And they amended that.
Correct.
They amended
Right,
that.
and that's how it is.
Yes.
Okay, so letters of interest, presentation by everybody who sends a letter of interest about why they, and what they have to offer to the community. Why they want to be on council, and what they have to offer the community.
I wrote an ad like this for a vacant mayor's position in another community almost a year and a half ago. And it's basically, there's a vacancy, letters of interest are due by, you must be prepared to make a presentation, answer questions at this date and time, and council will take further action as it sees fit, and that's basically it. So it might not quite be $1,000, but it'll be pretty close.
For the press, now, is there
That's the
another?
Post-Gazette.
For Post-Gazette, is there another price for the 2.0?
It's much cheaper, but like I said, I don't think we have the time to
Right, because it
advertise.
doesn't,
Oh,
it
that's
doesn't
right.
publish
It
as
has
often.
Yeah,
weird
yeah, yeah.
publishing.
Right, and so we have council saying they want print, and we haven't gotten an amendment, or anyone asking to change that motion. So, does someone, I think it's time for a vote. We have nothing else.
Let me just
Do we have-
clarify, this is to advertise for the letters
Letters
of
of
interest
interest.
for a vacant council seat, amended to have, the motion was amended to have it seconded. We have to vote on both motions?
No, it's one
There's
one
one
motion.
Okay, this
The
motion
deadline
is,
Friday
this motion
before-
is advertised for the vacant council seat, seeking letters of interest due in the borough office by 6/22/19.
6/21.
6/21.
At 12 noon.
At 12
Yeah.
noon.
Friday, the 21st.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's our motion. Shall we take a roll call vote?
Mr. Amendola,
Yes.
Mr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Blosser,
Yes.
Ms. Stamets,
Yes.
Ms. Sylvester.
Yes.
Yes, 6.
Okay, motion passes, and this is how we're going, this is gonna be our process to fill, till the end of the year, the vacant seat on council. And as I've stated several times through this meeting, that as we get more information about the process to get on the ballot at the general election for that position, we will announce it and advertise it. Okay,
I'll work with you on the ad, and we'll make sure it's in by Friday.
okay, yeah, that's right. This-
Get us
RJ's
in there
gone.
I know, so
All right.
we have to step up, right?
We do. All right, so next, we have a motion to accept the resignation of Season, oh, please, thank you, from the Shade Tree Commission, term ending on March 31st, 2020.
I, second.
Oh, well, you need a motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Reluctantly.
Yes.
She's good at everything she does.
Yes, but she is really into trying to give her all to her professional position with the borough as code enforcement.
Yeah.
That's a little too much for her. Okay, now we have a motion to appoint Kate Gaglio to the Shade Tree Commission for the remainder of the 5-year term ending March 31st, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a question on the wording.
Yes.
This is remainder, isn't this a new, or is it a?
I have to say, I'm not sure.
I think this is a.
This is a new 5-year term?
Yeah, so
Do
the,
you recall, Steve?
I do not recall, no. I mean, I know we
does
had
it, is
it.
it material?
It says for the remainder.
I think,
Well, so we can just say for the 5-year term ending March 2023.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, so we're going to strike the word remainder.
Yep. The most important thing is the ending date.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yep, we did.
And first,
And the person.
we have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So moving on to discussion items, we have we have pending letters of interest for boards and commissions. Those letters are available on the council drive, and they are distributed in last meeting's packets. Do we want to have any discussions about those? Philip?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to make a motion to authorize to advertise for the remainder of Susan Chesnowski's position from the Shade Tree Commission, term ending March 31st, 2020. For the recommendation of.
Second?
Seconded.
Okay. Any discussion on council? Any discussion by the community, since it was a motion that wasn't on the agenda?
I'd just like to point out for the record that these folks are going to be applying ostensibly in the same manner, right? In the same manner we would for that seat. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah, so it's letters of interest, and
So
then
the-
with these commissions, we need to step up
Sure.
and start reviewing them and start filling those positions and getting motions out.
Right. So just to clarify that that process is very similar to the process that we elected to undertake for this body.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Shall we have a
Voice vote.
yeah, let's, voice vote for advertising the open seat that Susan is vacating with the ending date of March 31st, 2020. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, are there any other, at this point tonight, is there any other discussion about any of the other open positions and the letters of interest? Or shall we discuss how we're going to match those up and when?
I'm looking for the letters. I don't have them here, but there was,
A shade tree
There's
It
shade
was
tree,
from
just a
last meeting,
second.
right? Yeah, we're, we voted on the shade tree already.
Right, okay, are there any
So you want to
others?
discuss the others
Well, if we
openings?
have any others, do we want to discuss
Yeah,
them tonight?
We have positions on the rec board that need to be filled.
Two of them on.
Well, there were some other things. A lady, wow, it was a really good letter of interest. You know what that was? You know which one that was? Why are we not moving on those?
Well, that's what I'm asking. We've got the discussion item. We have pending letters of interest, so.
Would this be Elizabeth Paul, are you speaking of the rec board specifically, Fred?
No, I don't think it was a rec board, right?
Okay.
Okay, just a second, let me.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify.
So-
We appointed Kirsten Capitallo to the planning commission. Yeah.
Okay, we don't have any other open positions.
According to the shared drive, there's only one subfolder and it's for appointed members. The letters of interest subfolder states, I guess this is someone in the office put down, Recreation Board 2 vacancies, but there's nothing in as far as what those vacancies are. It just says the people that are currently on the rec board. So the other one is the zoning hearing board, it says one alternate. So I'm not sure where, Marcia, I guess you know.
Okay, so okay, you're right. So what I am doing is I'm looking on the council share drive. Here. And we have, as you said, a folder for in the 2019 council meetings, there is a folder that says letters of interest, boards and commissions. And we have folders that tell us the names of the commissions, what are the vacancies.
They're in the 610 folder.
Are they in the 610? Thank you. Okay,
There's
so
at least one in there, and it's from Kate, who we already appointed, never mind.
all right. So what we may have to do, if I'm reading this correctly, is that we have folders that have, for the Building Appeals Board, the Civil Service Commission, Parks and Shade Tree, Planning Commission, Rec Board, and Zoning Hearing. And what we have in parens after that is the Building Appeals has 2 vacancies, the Civil Service has 1, Parks and Shade Tree has 1, which we just filled, so that means we have 0.
No,
We have the one more, that's why we have season, thank you. Planning Commission is not listing any vacancies. Rec Board is listing 2 vacancies, and Zoning Hearing 1 alternate. And when I look at these folders, for our Building Appeals, we have at this point a letter of interest from Brandon Edie.
Yeah, I know Brandon personally.
Okay.
He's a great guy. He's like, I mean, well, maybe my endorsement won't do him any good, but I'll be happy to stand for him in public forum. That dude, pardon me, the gentleman has more qualifications in that area of expertise than you would ever want in a candidate, so he's well qualified.
Okay, so his letter of interest, and he has given us a resume. My name is Brandon Edie, and I've lived in Crafton for the past 6 years. I've worked in construction for the past 17 years, and I'm interested in applying my knowledge and experience toward the vacant Crafton Building Appeals Board. I have worked in residential, commercial, heavy civil, aviation, and defense contracting. Currently, I'm working on 2 major rehabilitations of the Rachel Carson Bridge and Armstrong Tunnel. I look forward to the opportunity to serve the borough and appreciate consideration in advance. So with 2 vacancies on this board, do I have a motion to appoint Brandon Edie to one of those?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Oh, I don't have it.
Okay, so one of the things that I'm just going to recommend, I'm not trying to derail this because it sounds like he's a great guy, but it's a lot better if we have it listed with respect to the expiration of a term that he's supposed to be filling, et cetera, so we know where they're going to go. There's 2 openings here. So my suggestion, just a suggestion, is that you review the names and that the manager compose appropriate motions that you can consider at your next meeting.
Our next meeting.
Yeah, so it'll just say, what dates and that sort of thing. Whereas if we're just saying appoint him, it can get confusing after a while. I'm not trying to derail him or anybody that's on this list. I just think if you want to move forward with the applicants, let's just get the motions lined up correctly, and then everything will be good.
This is what the one I was talking about. I read this, and this guy is overqualified.
Okay.
And we can't let him get away. I mean,
Okay,
we need
so-
this guy.
Okay, so basically, are we good with
Friendly.
letting RJ,
Yeah.
craft the
Yeah, do
motions
that.
for our next
He's
meeting
the only letter we got, right?
on this commission? On this commission,
The only
there's two
letter we got
vacancies,
for
and it's
two
the only one
vacancies.
we've got so far.
So we need another, person on the appeals board.
Right, but.
Let's try to get this guy on, so we.
Okay, so we'll
We don't lose.
craft we'll have an appropriate motion at the next meeting with the expiration date of the term. Are we all
Okay.
good with that?
Then you talk about the Civil Service Commission.
Okay, let's do one at a time.
All right.
So we have, Civil Service Commission has one vacancy.
And one alternate, right?
We have two, it says one vacancy. And we have two.
I think it's two.
Okay, so again, what we can do is we can direct RJ when she returns to prepare for our next meeting, whether there's one, confirming whether there's one or two positions open. We have two letters.
Yeah, I saw that.
So-
And this has been going on for a long, long time.
Okay, so
Months.
we're gonna move forward.
So,
We're going to.
I'd like to see those positions filled.
Right, so if we have only one,
Thank you.
we will have to have a discussion about which one to appoint at our next meeting.
You could just have a blank
Right,
motion.
right, and if there are two, then we will appoint both of the letters. The letters are from David Bloom and Adam Jefferson for information.
Yeah, I think that Dave
Okay.
O'Brien is an alternate who's gonna move into that permanent position, I think.
Dave O'Brien?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get that,
But
we'll
we'll
get it all
find out.
figured out,
All right.
and we'll have motions ready.
Don't
for
let
our
that
next
other guy
meeting.
get away.
We aren't going to. We aren't going to.
Vacancy dates are on the website.
Yeah, I can't do three things at once. I know where they are, but that's RJ's job, not ours to do ad hoc. All right, so we've just done the shade tree and then the recreation board. It's listing two vacancies, new as 513. Right. However, at this point, we do not have any letters of interest, so there are two positions on the recreation board, and we are looking for letters of interest on that, and we will move on as soon as we have something to work with.
Madam President?
Yes.
That will be advertised as well, or we've already advertised those and not had any applicants?
We could,
I'm just asking a question.
Right, no, and I do not have the answer about whether we've advertised. If we have advertised, great. If we haven't, do we want?
Doesn't bring
Right.
them down to me, but in the interest of
Right.
time, I could acquiesce to, as long as you guys can, you and RJ can get us some clarity on that.
Right, so that if this hasn't been advertised, we can advertise that one as well. We have no objections to combining all the open positions and advertising what open positions we have? We're all good with that?
Not
Okay.
the Pittsburgh Press, though.
No.
Gazette.
Yeah, the Gazette 2.0 plus all of our other resources. We'll make sure that they get out. So I think that covers, and then we have a zoning hearing board, one alternate, and no applications. So what we'll do is, once RJ is back from vacation, we'll get this all squared away. We'll advertise the ones that have not been advertised, and we will have motions to appoint the letters of interest that we have for the open positions, so that we can vote on them at the next meeting.
Good.
Okay, any other discussion items?
Yes. while we're advertising for stop signs, that we can have a study done on North Emily and Crafton Boulevard.
So we need to have North Emily and Crafton Boulevard not advertised, but studied? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, for a stop sign.
North Emily and Crafton Boulevard, there's already a stop sign
It's
there.
a three-way stop.
No, it's like two,
No, it's two. No, it's three-way.
Okay, so do you want
North
to just check
Emily
it
and
all
Crafton
three?
Boulevard is one stop sign. Right. Or is there one,
There's one at
Oh, I'm
South
thinking North
Emily,
Glenwood. I'm
there's one
sorry.
at South Emily, there's one at Johnston Street, on Crafton Boulevard in each
but you
direction.
cannot see point out there.
You're right.
There's so many accidents
And
there.
you gotta take that on the sign, you can't have a stop sign every block.
Why is there one at Emily, or South Emily? What's that one?
That's, that's,
Been there years.
It's been there for years, the one at Johnston.
Mr. Rouse, would you like to comment on this issue?
Yeah, I'm looking at Google Maps right now, and so just to clarify Councilwoman Damons' question, she's asking to have a stop sign put at the intersection of North Emily Street and Crafton Boulevard, is that correct?
On Crafton Boulevard.
On Crafton Boulevard.
Okay, because I'm looking at a stop sign on North Emily to the Mayor's Point, but to Marcia's point, there is no stop sign at Crafton Boulevard. So your question then, if I am understanding this correctly, is that for the oncoming traffic where the drivers are ostensibly stopped, looking right and left, those coming up Backbone Road towards the school, obviously, on the way, you're talking about there.
East.
Coming down toward Beckton.
Yes. There's a site clearance issue there too, would probably warrant a
Yeah,
stop
you
sign.
can't.
But the
see-
only problem is, like the mayor said, you have one at Johnston, then a half a block down, you have one at, North Emily.
So.
South Emily.
North Emily. And then
So-
one at South
There's
Emily.
one at South Emily, which is a half a block from North Emily.
It's going the other direction.
Yeah.
So is this a situation that we can take a look at and get back to Marcia about?
It definitely needs a warrant. It definitely needs a warrant because the site clearance coming out of North Emily making a left-hand turn on the Crafton Boulevard.
But then to your point about having stop signs too close, I mean, maybe we need to take a look at that whole little area?
Does the stop sign have to be at a corner, or could you put it right across at Hawthorne so they have to stop before they turn left on the Hawthorne?
No, it probably doesn't meet the warrants, the left-hand turn on. There's a site clearance issue coming out of North Emily on the Crafton Boulevard that would meet a stop sign warrant.
But her whole point is well taken, because traffic coming up Backbone in the morning is flying through there, and it's hard, if you're trying to turn left from North Emily Street, nobody's giving you a break, they're all blowing through the stop sign, and you're trying to get your turn, and you're looking, Griner's hedges are probably a little bit too high there.
To be honest though, Marcia gave me as a sidebar that exact comment, but so, you know, she said, she said Griner's hedges are in the way. But, so I guess there must be some validity to that. Just to the mayor's point though, I mean, there has to be some kind of balance to enact about having a stop sign every.
So you'll
Right.
look at that,
Right.
that corridor and make recommendations.
My question to the body, is there anything that's precipitated this? Has there been an accident there? Has there been?
Several accidents. They pull out on you every time because they can't see you coming down the road.
Mr. Mayor, is there any, like, is there actually been
I'll,
accidents?
I'll have the chief research that.
Okay, and then you'll get back to us with a report. Okay, thank you.
One is accident, one's not.
Okay. All right. All right. Any other discussion items for this evening? We good? All right, community announcements. Crafton Celebrates. It's going to be held from June 28th to June 30th at Crafton Park. There is a Crafton Celebrates Facebook page or the Borough Summer 2019 newsletter for more information on individual events, activities, and opportunities to volunteer, please. This is a community event, and the people who have been working on it for months, now is the time where there are a number of volunteer sign-up sheets out, so please take a look at the Crafton Celebrates Facebook page and pony up for a couple of hours of help. All right?
One question, fireworks are what night?
Sunday.
Okay, so fireworks will be Sunday at.
I'm gonna talk.
Is that
Pardon?
the
She's gonna
30th?
do citizen comments.
Is that the 30th?
Be on that.
Okay, fundraising.
Yes.
Petition. Most booths and times on all days are still available and many volunteers needed. That's what I have here. And then we have fireworks on Sunday evening.
Is that the 30th?
That, I believe that's the 30th.
And the parade is the 30th also?
She's gonna talk during citizen comments.
Oh, okay, I get it, I'm sorry,
She's-
I'm
yeah.
hard of hearing. So, all right, moving on, do we have any additional citizens' comments? Yes, spoiler alert.
I'll be quick, I didn't expect to be here this late.
Set them
All right, Pam Polchowski, Crafton Celebrates. So, Crafton Celebrates is the 28th to the 30th. So the parade actually starts everything off on Friday, the 28th.
Okay.
Okay, so we're still looking for sponsorships, we're still looking for volunteers. We have our parade, we're having a Mr. and Miss Firecracker competition for any child that is below the 6th grade. That'll be kind of cute. We have bands, climbing walls, games, food, hot dog eating contest. You guys can all participate in that. Petting zoo, bounce house. We're having a bungee trampoline this year here. Our fireworks display will be on Sunday at 9:45. We have lots of vendors, lots of crafters, and tons and tons and tons of wonderful community auction baskets that people from the community have donated to us. And I just want to give a shout out to Angela, who has spearheaded all of this with limited amount of support through volunteers, and she's just spending a lot of time doing all Crafton Celebrate. So just a shout out to her, and we hope to see everybody at the park.
What time is the parade on Friday?
Parade's at 6:30.
6:30.
If you know anybody who would like to participate in the parade, please let me know. In the parade.
I'm
Are
sorry.
you going to be in the parade?
I guess.
Yeah. Okay. So anybody else, please let me know. If you have anything that you want to donate or any questions, give Angela a call. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other additional citizens' comments?
So I actually have a few things, so North Andover was brought up. I think this is a general problem, well, Anthony Salo, 568 brought it. I think this is a general problem of the borough. I actually brought this up to the borough as well. There's a lot of vegetation that blocks line of sight. So I don't know if necessarily a stop sign, but I do know that intersection, you cannot see past, the resident there has a lot of bushes, it's hard to see. That's not the only place in the borough that has that issue. I do know I brought up, for instance, Broadhead Avenue, there's a lot of overgrown brush, and a lot of things are not being enforced. I know Susan has a lot going on her plate. I'm asking council to take a look at, instead of just adding codes, making sure that they're being enforced as well, especially when it comes to vegetation, because a lot of vegetation is dangerous. We've seen trees that are hanging on power lines, and I know we've had a lot of power lines go down recently. But I actually have, so in regards to the parking, so last time there was a statement that was made that St. Philip's had been there for over 100 years without incident. So even if there were an incident, it would not be reported to the police. Not all incidents are reported to the police. And quite frankly, it was a misleading statement. And plus, a lot has changed over the past 100 years, including the size of vehicles, as well as the number of vehicles that are passing through on West Crafton and Crennel Avenues. Not only that, a lot of the churches in and around Pittsburgh have consolidated, thus making it a huge problem for more folks are coming into Crafton that are not Crafton residents, but are affecting other Crafton residents as well. And not just that, PennDOT has adopted over the years different road ordinances, and from my understanding and doing the research, the road itself does not sustain parking. And then on the subject area of West Crafton, the road isn't wide enough on either side per PennDOT's recommendation. And then there was another statement that the church is attempting to limit parking on certain days. I have video and pictures that were shared with the borough that there is parking on Saturdays as well, and other days, not just on Sundays. In fact, on West Crafton Avenue in front of Councilman Amendola's house, there is a sign currently that does say no parking, but it looks like, I don't know who, but I encourage council to research this, who went and put up there except Saturday and Sunday signs, because currently, you can only fit cars on one side of the street. But the way that the signs dictate, it allows parking on both sides. However, you have to park on the sidewalk in order to let cars through the street, which people are doing that currently. But not just that, there are people parking in zones that are currently no parking, including fire hydrants in areas that are painted yellow. I had contacted Crafton Police, and their response to me was, we were told not to do anything just yet. I tried to clarify to them that it is in areas that are currently no parking, including fire hydrants. So they did go and take a look. I don't know if any action was taken, but council needs to address that as well. So they're not just parking in areas that are in the gray area. They're parking in areas that are dangerous, like blocking the fire hydrant. But not just that, also, they have a parking lot at the bottom of the hill. They're not utilizing it.
Right, and I think these points have been made, and I thank you for your input, and we will look into all of this and get this.
I just want justification why they wouldn't be parking there, because it's not for handicap purposes.
Right, well, we will look into this. We'll ask the mayor to look into it, and if we have enforcement issues that are not being taken care of, we'll have the mayor address those. Thank you, and we take this seriously. Anything else? All right, the meeting is adjourned.
Not till you bang the gavel.
Your gavel there.
Thank you.